Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in here. My voice, but our course on the screen instead of a video of me this time. So just sort of checking in about due dates, which you can see I'm logged into our course here. We've obviously finished up Unit 1. We're sort of midway through Unit 2. I'm recording this on Wednesday. And then looking towards a relatively quick turnaround between this Thursday due date and then again on Monday. A lot of our earlier due dates move pretty quickly, largely so that we can have more time to devote to this fiction workshop, or our first workshop that's coming up, which is actually something that I wanted to draw your attention to. So the sort of core of our course, the anchor points, are these workshops that we do. We have a fiction one, a creative nonfiction, a poetry, and then a final workshop. And so as we work through, these various units, especially the ones that are more sort of content-based, not so much the introductions one, you do want to be looking forward to the workshops. So you're unlikely to, say, finish Unit 4 on this Thursday and then turn around really quickly and write a short story. Or maybe you do the bulk of the writing in this turnaround, but you might have been thinking about, like, what topic might I like, what sort of setting or what elements do I want to bring into my short story. So unlike the other units, which are much more kind of self-contained, the workshop units are something that you can be aware of coming up and kind of thinking about as we go. And of course, there's nothing to say that you couldn't start writing your short story now or continue revising it as we move toward these workshop dates. But as you can see now, we're getting into more of the content for our course. So unit number 2 has us thinking about working like a writer and then doing a couple of different discussion board assignments. The framing a memory is it's almost like a short story that you're writing, except that you're writing from your experience or your memory. So you're maybe less concerned to invent characters or invent a scenario or that kind of stuff. So we overcome the problem of invention by using memory, but it doesn't mean that, and this is what is discussed here, it doesn't mean that you can just tell us kind of verbatim, like as if you were a reporter, about events that happened. You still want to imbue them with some kind of literary value or make them interesting to us. And that's ultimately the challenge of the thing. That's why in this example here, the real fish is your memory, the things that actually happen, the events. But it's kind of the reflection that we're actually interested in, the way that you process these events through the tools of creative writing by, making interesting sentences or using interesting words to describe those events, evocative words. So it's not just the events part, it's, the way that you shape those into something that's interesting. It's pretty challenging, even though you're not faced necessarily with that problem of, like, what do I write about? You're choosing a memory, so maybe there's that choice part, but you're not faced with a totally blank slate like you might in other kinds of writing situations. And then a much more personal discussion board here, just that question of, like, why do I write? What do you feel like you get out of it? What interests you about it? What is pleasurable? What's challenging? All of that kind of stuff. And that question then is tied to a series of videos that you can find on YouTube where famous writers, not famous writers, all kinds of people have kind of posted videos about why they write. I'm asking you to reflect your engagement with that in your post, respond to at least 2, and I've invited people, if they're interested, in the model of these ones that you'll see on YouTube, if you want to do a video post, you're more than welcome to, so you don't just have to sort of type a post like we normally would do. I walk you through how to do that. It's actually relatively simple, and many people are already pretty savvy when it comes to recording, posting. There's really no editing required, but people are really good at that too. So if that's something that's of interest to you, that would be great to see. We then look at our next unit, Unit 3, due on Monday, January 26th. which has us looking at sort of like the most, or maybe one of the most fundamental aspects of writing, or tools that we use to pick up the analogy that starts the unit here. And that's, of course, working with metaphor or similes or comparative language, analogic language through analogy. There's a video that you can watch here. I have to enable it here. That's not so much content as just sort of funny to watch because it covers what we want to cover. And then the good old Forrest Gump and his life is like a box of chocolates. Maybe one of the most famous similes now, or infamous if you want to call it that. The assignment, though, is, I think, a really fun one. It has us thinking in a really formulaic way about metaphor, simile, but I don't mean formulaic in any sort of negative sense. We're sort of breaking down the component pieces to see how a really good simile works. And so we want to avoid cliche as much as possible. So ones that you've run into before, not particularly interesting. It doesn't sort of surprise us in any way. And then I'm asking you to find a cool metaphor, simile that you're familiar with or that you've run into somewhere, but then express it in this kind of formula. So the abstract thing being compared to the concrete thing. So the Forrest Gump example, when he says life is like a box of chocolates, the abstract thing, the non-material thing, is obviously life, compared to that much more everyday or concrete thing, the box of chocolates. And so it works really nicely, even though it's become kind of corny in some ways, because it takes this thing that is almost too big to think about, or very, so complicated, so many pieces and is abstract, you can't hold it. And, it makes it thinkable, it makes it approachable, it makes it accessible by likening it to something that isn't so big and abstract and all of that other stuff. So that's, in this case at least, what makes the simile so effective. It takes this really big thing but presents it as this much more accessible or mundane kind of a thing. And it obviously works. You can't just put anything in here and make a comparison. The comparison has to sort of ring true to people. So it's a pretty challenging exercise. You're not doing a lot of writing for it, obviously, but you do have to put quite a bit of thought into it. Okay. So again, always be sort of cognizant of our due dates, not just the one that is right around the corner, but ones that are coming up as well. And then, of course, keep your eye on that fiction workshop coming up relatively soon for us as well. As always, if you have any questions, be in touch with me, and I will talk to everybody soon.